All right, welcome everybody to our latest Between the Races podcast on the mxvice network. Thank you everyone for listening and supporting the site. We really appreciate it. We'd first like to thank our sponsors in Fly Racing, Monster Energy, Fox, Parts Europe, Scott, Bell Helmets, Acherbys, ASU Performance, Kawasaki UK, KTM UK, O'Neill, and of course Even Strokes for all their incredible support. As without them, none of this would be possible. All right, for this episode, we have another Aussie motocross special and American as well, as we're joined by special guest Nic Still from MotoOnline. How's life, and thanks for joining us, mate?
Absolutely, mate. I appreciate you getting me on. Life's been pretty good. It's I like to, you think of this as the off season, right? But it doesn't feel like that. We've just had MX of Nations. We're halfway through the Australian Supercross, and then when you think of that, okay, we're like less than 3 months from the Anaheim opener. So it's been a really cool year in the way of keeping racing going. But every day I just slowly get more keener for Anaheim. It's coming quick.
Yeah, mate. So you're sort of just going to have a little bit of those extra bonuses of World Supercross, Paris Supercross, and then like the big stuff is really coming quicker than you think, isn't it, mate? There's really not much time there. But I guess before we talk about any of that, how was the SMX? You were at the finale in LA, weren't you, mate? Must have been pretty magical being at the Coliseum there. There's some really cool events going on there. Triumph, Kawasaki, Yamaha. You and Alex went from MotoOnline. So how was it, mate? Must have been a pretty awesome trip.
Yeah, I really want to start with that point of this was a fantastic event for the basics of they did so much with the stadium in the way of, okay, we have the 2024 YZ 250 launch on the Friday. We got to ride the bikes into the stadium, use the track and the background there for all our still photography, for all the reports coming out. Then Friday night, obviously Alpine Stars, they had an event for their 60th anniversary. I think that was like 10 minutes away from the stadium. And then, on the Friday or the Saturday as well, Kawasaki had their own thing. They were using the very top of the stadium. They had all the bikes lined up. And, everybody that's been somebody at Kawasaki throughout the racing for those years was at this event. They didn't miss anybody out. They were all there, everyone got taken down onto the track, and then, they brought out the box van, the riders came riding in, they had all the TVs going, they had Kawasaki like plastered all over the stadium. The amount of times like the stadium got used for something, as well as this event, this fantastic finale event in, a stadium that's so historic in our sport, right? Like, awesome. The vibe was, I feel like the vibe was almost Monster Cup-ish, because it's like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, anyone could have really won, and there's a high money stake behind it. So, dude, for that weekend in what they put together in that stadium, incredible. There's no other word, really incredible.
Yeah, mate. And the racing side of it was pretty cool. You got treated to some pretty good action as well. Obviously, Deegan getting it in the 250 class was pretty amazing. Sad what happened to Hunter there too, mate, because his talking to JT probably left around 480,000 potential earnings on the table there by not racing. So you really get an idea of how bad that back must have been, and credit to him for racing at the Nations, doing it for his country. And then Jet Lawrence, mate, what more can you say? Just an absolute machine. That battle with Roxon and Sexton, sad to see him going down. But the racing was pretty cool, mate. The track was pretty cool, what they did with it, given the parameters they had to work with. So I guess what's your take on the actual finale and the SMX as a whole? Because it was pretty interesting, divided opinion, but considering, so many people are on the same page to make it happen, make it work, getting those tracks must have been an absolute logistical nightmare. Obviously, the bike set up, threw a wild card in there. I suppose interesting, those guys want to be challenged. Sometimes maybe that's a little bit too far with the supercross, motocross hybrids, but just your thoughts on it, because being there, you must have sort of got some pretty cool insights.
The whole thing works, right? The whole structure of the thing works. I think the riders buy into it now. There was a bit of uncertainty whether riders were going to do this. They go through the World Supercross route, or they could, park it up and not have to ride pro motocross. It worked. The system worked. The racing worked. The structure worked. The point structure worked. And I think to finish in a stadium like that, I think that's the perfect hybrid track. Like, that sand was challenging. That was look at the amount of passes that sort of got set up there. We lost Fernandez there. We lost Chase Sexton in there. Like, this is as, crazy as it wants to be with the track. Then you've got the Supercross side, and then keeping it up through the parasols, back down, keeping that historic part to it. talking Hayden Deegan real quickly, it's funny watching him in that second moto come around to finish. Every single person in that stadium had their iPhone out because they were about to video. They thought we were about to witness something which would be incredible. Like, talk about Brian Deegan and the Ghost Ride and stuff like that in that photo. But what I don't think people realize is, obviously, that photo of the Ghost Ride for Deegan, how iconic that is. There's a photo going around of Jet standing on the start gates, bike on the ground, parasols in the background. It's taken from behind. That image is going to be one of those, right? That image is going to be one of those historic ones that we're looking at forever. It's going to be the new, it's the new part to that story. And to be there, to witness that, to see that, to be the first ones to see what the finale was going to be like. Speaking with Feld Entertainment as well, and a lot of those guys, pretty sure we're not going back there. This was a once-off, and to be able to experience that, see that, the logistical nightmare that it was, and it was. You look at the acts, right, of what's inside that stadium, what's inside that in the parastyles. Like, it's had NASCAR in there, some of the best musical singers in the world, Olympics. You have to be somebody. You have to be something big to be in this area. And for us to do that as a sport, how cool. How cool.
Yeah, the fans looked like they were certainly enjoying it. The engagement was really good. Obviously, it would just look like it was going off in a lot of ways. And, it was a pretty solid hit out for the first series. They tried it, and that was really good crescendo to finish on there, because it just looked like it came together nicely to tie it off. And where they go next year and what they do, I'm sure it'll be really interesting to see how it pans out, mate. But just from your opinions of it on the ground, obviously, majority of it was positive, I'm assuming. Obviously, the track's divided opinion, but the things like the more money for more riders, really cool to have that in the sport. And, the bike issue stuff with the testing, guys like RJ were pretty vocal about it. And you look at guys like Kenny, just slots back in after a reasonable amount of inactivity and just does so well. And same as Vial and Sexton and Jet, it was pretty cool. Even though you hear the guys saying a lot of it was survival, but I guess the real losers in it are probably the teams and the mechanics and the truck drivers. That's probably the only guys that feel the pinch of something like that after such a massive draining season that's now out to 31, plus Motocross of Nations, mate, plus these other things like Paris Supercross and whatever else they'll try and squeeze in, mate. But so just your takes on the negatives and positives from what we haven't mentioned yet.
I really don't feel like we've seen too many negatives.
Yep.
There was a lot of negatives around, the money, of where the money went to. Was it the teams? Does it go straight to the riders? Like, there was a fair bit of talk about that coming into it. Some of the rules, they were sort of making the rules up as they were going. But when you're doing this for the first time, I feel like that's okay. And you're going to learn things from it. You're going to change things. There's probably things they're going to learn for next year. As for the tracks, I feel like the first one they did at Chicagoland, I hope I got that right, that was awesome. The second one, okay, a bit more motocrossy, it's fine. And then to finish on that track, I think that's the best combo. I really do. And, I think I read a lot of stuff on social media about, say, at the final round, the capacity of fans we had there. Now, you have to remember, when you look at Anaheim, I think Anaheim now holds 48,000. The Coliseum holds 63. We've still got a full stadium of people, just it's in a bigger area, right? So the crowd was definitely good. Like, the pit party was I've never seen a pit party so, dude, I don't know if it's because, smaller, combined a bit more pits. There's not as many riders, but there was people everywhere, people having a good time. The vibe there was cool. It was really cool. I didn't, pick anything wrong about it. I couldn't.
Yeah, no, you can't really fault too much, mate. And the really cool thing is that money, a lot of it obviously is coming from the broadcasting deal they have with NBC there and the platform surrounding that. And it's good, there's a pretty cool setup for Aussies to watch this kind of stuff too as well, because there's been major issues with that in the past, just recent past as well. So that was cool that they have that desire to have live sport like that, because it is great for people to watch on that prime time slot, because especially with that actors strike going on, JT was saying, there's a lot of thirst for that kind of action, especially if there's going to be a little bit of programming issues, which will inevitably come in the future. So having Supercross and Motocross all in one place, how good's that too?
One of the biggest things as well, just to point out from this final round, I couldn't believe the amount of A-listed celebrities. that were actually there. And that, whether that's a reflection of what Fell does to get these people there for, a social media, but like, we had actors from Star Wars there, like forgetting Sarah Marshall, like all that, like A-list celebrities, you know what I mean? And same thing with Alpine Stars with their event they had in downtown on the Friday night. Like, it felt like a major league sport in America, and that was awesome to be a part of. It really was.
No, it definitely ticked so many boxes, mate. And yeah, just being there to witness that first one is something that you'll never forget as well, mate. And I guess it led into the Nations pretty nicely. Obviously had that weekend off, and then it was bang straight into the Nations with the Aussies. And, they were doing well from us perspective, mate. Obviously got the best result we've ever got. Ferris went up there and, did his country proud as well. Hunter as well, putting a valiant effort in, even though we know he was, barely making it just in the days leading up. He was struggling pretty badly. And then Jet keeps just amazing us, doesn't he? He's phenomenal speed, skill, mindset, balance, just everything about him, the technique, the way he adapts to situations and tracks, and it's ever changing. And even in that second one, when he was tracking Kenny Roczen, he was like, yeah, I'll just sit behind him and watch what he's doing. And I can sort of wait for my moment to pounce, and he did around 7 laps in. So it was another masterclass, really cool for the Aussies. Obviously, no one was beating the French that day, but just from an Aussie perspective, mate, pretty proud effort of the boys, wasn't it?
Absolutely. There's no other words to use. And I think we might find out, or maybe we won't. I feel like that crash that Ferris had on the Saturday,
Oh,
he was sore. I feel like he was a lot more banged up on Sunday than he'd like to, let on about. Same thing with Hunter. Hunter basically didn't race the final. Like I said, $480,000 for him, so he could go and race the MX of Nations. And then Jet, I think to cap that off, is winning that final moto. But like you said, I don't think anyone was beating France at home. I just don't think it, and that's no disrespect to our riders or anyone else. It's just how good they are at their own tracks, and they know what to expect. They've got bikes set up, yada yada yada. And I think it's a big difference when you have that many fans screaming and as patriotic for France as they were. Second to me is still a win. It really is.
Yeah, it's impressive, and it sort of bodes well for the future as well, doesn't it, mate? It'll be really interesting to see how the team plays out. Obviously, fingers crossed Mitch Evans can, go on to have an amazing career, because, he's one of the absolutely elite talented riders in the world. If he can just get those wrists sorted, stay healthy and just get that period of longevity, be really awesome, because he's just like a real world beater. We've seen last year and on many occasions how good he is. But, it'll be interesting. What do? You obviously got Jet and Hunter on the 450s next year. Do we see a 250 guy like Todd or Crawford step up, or do you see Ferris go back again, or is there beat? And there's so many options, isn't there, mate? It makes for a pretty interesting discussion, what pathway the Aussies go in the future, whether they drop back one of the Lawrence boys, obviously Hunter. So your take on that too.
Like, this is a question I want to put to you is, next year, 2024, it's the first year we're going to see both the Hunter brothers, both the Lawrence brothers. I don't know. That's
like a thing now, isn't it?
I don't know why. I've always said it too. For both Lawrence boys, they're going to be on 450. So they're actually going to see a full race season, as in 17 rounds of supercross, another 11 or 12 rounds of motocross, then super motocross, 31 weekends. Do you think we see the possibility of they can't fit anything more into a schedule to take on MX of Nations in that time period? I think a lot of these guys are experiencing, okay, we just finished MX of Nations, we're having a week off, and then we're getting back into the 2024 preseason. Like, is that sustainable for these riders to go and do that? And, neither one of the Lawrence brothers have sort of experienced that yet, because obviously they both did 250s, that's 7 rounds of supercross. Jet did every round of motocross. It's same as Hunter, but yeah, I'm interested. I really am. And how does that look for a lot of riders? Do we have dates for next year yet? Like, I'm interested to see how it looks. I really am.
Yeah, it's a savage schedule for all these guys. So many races, and obviously, like you were saying, obviously they're going to be doing the Paris Supercross as well, these blokes. So that's another one to fit in the schedule. Obviously, they're getting paid handsomely to do these kind of things, but with the nations, it's a bit of a different kettle of fish on the payment for, I guess, prize money, I suppose you could say. But, you think Manly Basin next year. I don't think that'll be a problem getting riders to, because everyone loves that track. It's probably the most American track, so that'll be absolutely epic. It's just a huge place. You can absolutely jam pack so many people in there. So that nation should be an absolute blockbuster. And then obviously back to America the year after, I suppose. So the next 2 years look pretty solid, but after that, you're thinking about burnout. 31 races, like you were saying, that's so much racing, so much risk of injury. There's just so much to consider. But I think the next two should be fine. But I know Australian motocross isn't a really elite place right now. There's so many young guys doing their thing. There's a lot of talent coming through. But I guess to win an event like your nations, you need your star powers like your Lawrence brothers, like France had, to really get those moto wins, bank some top scores, and be able to only drop one, which I guess cost the likes of Germany and Spain from getting on the podium. Australia and France probably that held it together as most consistent. So it's going to be really interesting. We definitely need them to get that Motocross of Nations victory, because it's definitely on the cards in the next decade. It's an exciting period, mate. So, yeah,
I think
what's your sort of take in regards to that?
I think for sure, we're getting a win. It's only a matter of when, right? Might be next year on a track like that. These boys have spent a substantial amount of time with. Where do we go for our third rider? Do we pull a 250 rider here from Australia? I think we're sort of put on that, because obviously you put Jet and Hunter both on 450s. That's a given. That's what it is. Who do you pull for that? That 250 spot to go out through and do that? And then going back to this year's MX of Nations, what Team America did was pretty cool. Those three guys put their hands up for the sake of they were going because they didn't want to not go, so to speak. They want to send a team, and I'll cop it, right? Because Christian Craig is, that's my person. That's the dude I follow. I'm lucky enough to call him a friend, and for him to go and do that, to put his hand up after being on the bike a couple of weeks after surgery, to do that, and then just to be almost publicly humiliated on social media, like, dude, that's not cool. That's I read that and I was like, can you imagine how he feels?
Yeah.
And he's not going there to win. He knows that. He's going there to make sure you have a team.
Yeah.
And then it's publicly humiliated. Like, it's just, and like, I'm not talking about everybody, but man, I've seen some wild tweets. You would have seen them as well.
Yeah. And those tweets follow the Lawrence brothers around, especially Hunter, so vigorously. It's quite crazy. Some of these riders just have a lot of hate. And then you look at a guy like Chase Sexton that cops it as well, but he's also an interesting one, how he doesn't really seem to be that popular amongst the fan base. Generally speaking, when you do post articles about him, you'd think he'd be a way more bigger draw than that kind of stuff. But getting back to Christian Craig, there's no team if Craig's not going. It's just pretty much flat. That's pretty much dead in the water. They're probably not, they couldn't pull probably Jack Chambers at that point racing MX2. He was racing Puerto Rico locked in. I don't think that was even on their cards. I think it was Craig or nothing at that point, pretty much, wasn't it, mate? So massive respect. And he hasn't raced since, a good 5-6 months. So to even do that, he had 6 weeks on the bike, but nothing can prepare you for France and Ernée, that environment. It's not happening. You can never get that, even if you raced 18 rounds. It's a massive shock to the system. And to even do that, what he did was so impressive. And, bring the family with him and, have a good time and just relish the atmosphere, even though the racing didn't go so well. They actually had pretty good speed, to be quite honest, but you got to piece everything together at the nations. And RJ had his issues with crashing. Good speed. AP was just pretty much done by the end, but had some good rides as well. So just to have them there, it's not the same if they're not there, is it, mate? They need to be there and they know the importance of it. And it's cool guys like Paul and JT and Christina Denny at the AMA. They're really putting in a shift because they know it's how important it is and it can't be missed anymore. That's the way, which is a good thing for the nations. But I suppose it'd be nice. I guess those guys are calling for more prize money now, aren't they, to sort of get that financial support, because it's so much, it's tens, it's up towards 6 figures, isn't it, mate, to get them there?
Well, look at Zach Osborne. Zach Osborne, he put a tweet out, I'll go, I'll pay for myself, I'll do this just so we go. Like, these riders actually do put money into to going as well. And, people probably don't really understand with Christian as well, how bad of an injury that was. And then it didn't get better. He had to go have surgery again to go through the exact thing again. And it's okay. If it's falling back into pro motocross. Okay, going back to racing there, you're going behind the 8 ball. But the MX of Nations, these are the best riders in the world. and they are all the best riders in the world. To go and drop into that field, mentally being prepared for that as well, right? It's yeah, a pretty big thing, and I feel like for him as well, it's a little bit more special considering how close he was
Yeah.
last year to going to being picked, and then the
Wasn't he
last
even
minute
told he
switch.
was on the team at one point last year?
I believe so. Yeah, was told he was on the team. We're all going, and then they go with Justin Cooper, and that's after he was getting ready to ride the 450 motocross. He stayed on his 250, did 250 motocross. I feel like constantly had to prove himself to be that guy, and then not to get picked. This was special for him, and to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm pumped for it. Like, okay, I might be a little biased, being close with him and that as well, but awesome to see. Same for AP, same for RJ, man. Um,
You never know when you might get the chance again, do you?
no, that's right. And you never know what it looks like, and to be a part of that, to run them numbers, like the idea of them running the 2023 MX of Nations without last year's winning team there blows my mind. Like, how does that happen? How does that work? You're like, just scary.
Yeah. And I suppose in a lot of other nations, there's usually a lot of guys missing, but this year was particularly deep. All right, you had Hurlings, Tomac, Sexton, these kind of guys missing, but this year was very deep. There was so many stars, Renault, Fevre, Vial, the Lawrence brothers, Adamo, Ferrato, Prado, Fernandez, Roxon, Langenfelder, Philandron, De Wolf, Coldenhop, even though he got injured. Geyser was there, Pansar for Slovenia. People might not know some of these guys as well as, we do, but there's just so many guns. Like even that Belgium team, Everts, Jago, Lucas Kuhn, and like Gio's been regularly top 10 in MXGP, an elite hard pack
I
rider.
love that team.
And yeah, Jeremy
Yeah.
Sewell, like it was really, really stacked this year. So I guess the gravity of not just pulling on the jersey, but actually wanting to do it in front of, like, you probably know you're not going to beat those guys, especially on a track like that that's very foreign to Americans, the way it was prepped, and they hadn't had much rain there. So it was pretty brutal, very tight, pretty intimidating atmosphere. So there's all that stuff that you can just, not point to, but it needs to be pointed to, because there's so many things in motos that go wrong, like something with someone's goggles or gear or bike that they never say, but they deserve respect for being out there. And Christian Craig just being out there was a success, and having America there and that whole KTM group, the Husky, they all deserve massive credit, don't they?
And like, even with with Dean Ferris with that as well, like most of the teams aren't on their bike. They're bringing suspension,
Yeah.
they're bringing graphics, they're bringing handlebars. You know what I mean?
Kenny was the same, wasn't he?
Exactly. Like 99% of these guys aren't on their own machines, and to go there, and it's not much time in the days prior to get the bikes ready. The France knew what it was going to do. I think it was a lot drier and hard packed than they thought it was going to be. And that's where they get a bit more of this home track advantage. So, like I said, second for them is still a massive win. Best result we've had yet. We've had the third, we've had the second. We're going for the first.
Yeah, do you reckon you'll be able to swing the MotoOnline ticket to get to that one, mate? You'll probably be putting it in now as in the calendar, because that one should be pretty unmissable.
I think the American one, yeah. I think you gotta go to that. Like next year, obviously we'll spend a bit of time in January, February, with America as well. And I know Alex is going to spend a bit of time there, and I think he's taken his whole family, for the start of Monster Energy Supercross, and for him to be able to do that and experience it with his wife and kids, and have them there, that's pretty special. And then obviously some of the pro motocross, and then, dude, I'm all for SMX. I'm happy to go to that again. And then, the following year when we get MX of Nations back here in America, I feel like that's one that you even go as a fan, right?
Yeah.
That's what you do.
It should be pretty epic, mate. Obviously, you got a pretty busy schedule with all that, as well as working the full-time job in the industry as well. So I guess you want to give the listeners a little bit of insight into that and what your role is, and then we'll get on to chatting a bit of Aussie Supercross as well, with the opener in the rear vision mirror now, which was pretty cool in that sort of small confines of the entertainment center there. Something different, really tight track, small main event with 10 guys, hard to pass. So many, elbows out situations. The dirt was actually kind of good, gave it that little bit of excitement, but I guess it was something different for the series, but it was pretty cool to see Anstey and Wilson getting the job done. A lot of MXvice listeners will obviously know them. So, mate, just a bit of thoughts on the AusX opener and your role too, mate.
Yeah, so obviously, roll with MotoOnline with what I do, a lot of the podcast sort of stuff, video content, and trying to learn the other bases to it as well. I left school in year 9. Like, I'm not a writer, I'm not this, but to learn those other things and learn the photography side of it as well. I really enjoy that. And Alex actually takes his time to show me things and do this and do that. So to try and learn it as a whole. And at the end of the day, just like you just like talking about dirt bikes. That's obviously what I do. And, do that with such a prestige platform as MotoOnline and obviously foremost media here in Australia. As well as that, a full-time job with Serco Motorsports as well, as a Queensland rep for them guys, and obviously a bit with the race team as well. And then some other things I could go in the background. I try and help out as many of these, SX3, MX3 kids, and try and help out as much to give back to the sport as well. So it never really stops between obviously traveling here, obviously with Serco, with the race team, and then obviously MotoOnline back and forth with America, and obviously Supercross here as we're just about to start. Obviously, Adelaide, it was small, it was tight. I think it's a cool, how the pits were set out was cool. I was all for that. The track was great with the way the dirt breaking down added that little bit of, a slip here, a slip there is making up that, that 1% so guys can make a pass. I've said it many times, that entertainment center is not the right venue for what we're trying to do. Whether that upsets people or not, that's, my opinion with it. That's fine. If we go back there next year, which it looks like we're going to, I'd probably pull the triple out and put another rhythm lane in there just to try and give it a little bit more, that triple. It's really, triple to the inside and then inside before the finish. And if you can run it in there, it's where you're going to make a pass. So if you jam another rhythm lane in there, maybe even look at the idea of starting outside the stadium. I don't know how that works. I think we could do it. I feel like it could be done. I think it's wide enough. But yeah, other than that, it's maybe with the structure as well through the heats. I'd pull 3 from each heat and then 2 from the LCQ. I feel like that might flow a little bit better. And then as well, I know about you, it felt really quick.
It did. It was like gone in a blink and you miss it, wasn't it?
Yeah, so whether it's laps or time there, we can go there. But at the same time, I'm just pumped to see Supercross back here in Australia, and we've got a couple of really good rounds coming up. Newcastle is a fantastic round. It's sort of the marquee event for AME Group and what they do. And the vibe there from last year, the track, the stadium, the fans. I'm really looking forward to that. And then finish there in Marvel Stadium, for World Supercross. On the Friday night, it's an awesome spectacle, that stadium. It's a full size track in there. What more could you ask? I just hope that next year we have 4 rounds. Hope that next year we have something a little bit closer to me and you, Ed.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good, the Australian Supercross, mate. And obviously just to chat a little bit about Marvel and obviously the Newcastle round coming up as well. It should be really exciting. Obviously those American guys bring a lot of star power to our series here, don't they? Like Wageman, Brayton, Wilson, Anstey. There's some pretty, Cole Thompson as well, a guy very well. So there's some really cool, elements to that series. And a lot of guys internationally, people enjoy watching it because it actually is really good racing. It's pretty interesting to see how it played out in Adelaide. That's just sort of a one-off, little bit of something different, but pretty amazing the amount of talent we can sort of attract to in Australia and the amount of work behind the scenes to get them out here, mate. And so just your thoughts on how much that elevates the Aussie guys as well as elevates the series and the popularity of it, because they're pretty valuable assets, aren't they?
Yeah, having these riders there as well, it legitimizes the series. It legitimizes our riders. It shows how good our riders are as well. And, it adds to the fan experience. The people that, a dream for them might be to go to Monster Energy Supercross. And to be able to have some of these guys, some of these, fans, and to experience this, to be, close with Dean Wilson, to see Cole Thompson, Wageman, those guys as well. Like Dean Wilson's one of the fan favorites over there. So to have him there and racing and with the people, I feel like that's a massive success. And like I said, I think it legitimizes our riders to show how good we are as well. It's not really a good look when they all go win everything. I think we're holding out hope there with Matt Moss to go out and do something. So there could be some fireworks there.
How good was Mossy's podium comment saying we've got to stop these guys winning? He's got that bit of edge, doesn't he? He's liking that Kawasaki out of the gate too.
Moss, that was just typical Mossy, and I'd
Yeah.
love to see it. I have a lot of time for him, and love the guy, hate the guy, talk about his past, whatever. Is what it is. I'm all for it. He's great for the sport. And he adds that flavor to it, right? It's that storyline that we can watch and that we follow. And it's going to be a good season. Like, obviously, when I say season, we've got 2 rounds left. I think each round at Newcastle is going to be paying points. So technically it makes it feel a lot bigger than it is. But with Dean Wilson, Matt Moss, add JB in there as well, and then, the likes of Tanny, Clout, it's anyone could win. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Yeah, mate. It obviously means something. Wilson was mentioning how important it was for him just to get a win after going a fair while without one. So there's definitely some sort of gravitas and pull to this series, and it is very competitive, and people want to win, even though it's only 3 rounds. I'm sure that'll be looked at in the future from all reports to extend it, because that's definitely what it needs to happen, just to, spread the word to more places. But it's definitely lining up pretty cool, mate. So there's definitely that sort of meaning to it. It's not just like an off-season race, chill out, have a relax. It's gotten a bit more than that, isn't it, the series?
Yeah, I spoke with Robbie Wageman about it, and I joked to him. I said, "What you're doing now is what people call the Brayton program, right? Like it's coming over here. It's the off season. It's gate drops, getting ready for your next season." He goes, "There is so much worth in it. There's no other training better than gate drops, tight racing like this, and to start his preseason off with that, it's good. And I feel like the success, if we watch the success with him, with Cole Thompson, with a few of these other riders, they go back and they see that these American riders, they're going to catch on. They're going to see that, they're going to go, this time period works out perfectly to kick off our preseason. The tracks are a little bit tamer. Get into it, get gate drops. I see it really as a benefit. I really do.
Yeah, and just tell us a bit about the ticket sales for the opener and the fan attendance and engagement. How into it were they? It's a bit hard to gauge from watching it on the TV sometimes, but just your sort of thoughts from being there, being on the ground, seeing before and after. How was it, or was it well received?
Yeah, I feel like it was. I feel like on social media as well, obviously the track is something we spoke about. A lot of fans sort of really gave it a public bashing on there, and that's okay. They're entitled to their opinion, and if what people's perspective of what Supercross is, maybe that's not what it is. But at the round, the venue, sorry, you could actually go into I feel like it's like a sporting hall or something like that. All the teams had a set up there. They had rider signings. The guys were there. I feel like one thing I want to mention is some of these riders need to take that more seriously. In these poster signings, weren't there? There's a few teams, their guys aren't there. Like, where are they? Put them there. That's very, very important, especially for fans to have that interaction. But they were able to go in there, walk around it, and they had the privateers in there as well. They had the 65s in there as well. Everybody had a spot inside there, and they could do their own thing. They could, privateers could do posters, could do fan interactions, could do photos on their bikes and stuff like that. I feel like that's really, really important. And then as well for us, like to be able to access that, we can literally go straight down a set of stairs into the tunnel, into the start area, and then literally go into a back road into that tunnel. So it made it very, very easy. I feel like the way they've structured that, and obviously for the fan entertainment there, incredible. Opening ceremonies, they had the pyrotechnics, the music, the strobes, all that. Fans love that. It's an experience. It's an entertainment. It's a show. Everybody that went there enjoyed it because it's tight racing, it's good racing, and it's literally at your feet, so to speak, really. So I feel like, a lot of these people online as well, probably gave it they're giving it the public bashing. They weren't there. They didn't experience it. They didn't expect the vibe. They didn't see it. So it's a start. It sucks when it's, a 3-round series. And I said this to a couple guys. I was like, you can't win the championship tonight, but you can lose it, right? Like Look at a couple of those guys like our very own, Serco Yamaha's Reese Budd. He didn't make it in the main event. And that hurts now because obviously that scores him 10th overall for that night. You've only got 2 rounds to chase that. So it makes it very, very hard. But that's Supercross. That's what makes it what it is. Everyone knows they're going for that expectation. So, yeah, we'll see what we get at Newcastle.
Yeah, well said, mate. Some great insight there. And obviously the special thing about motocross is the fan access to the riders and the engagement. It's not like Formula One or MotoGP where it's virtually impossible without a VIP pass. Fans in motocross can generally just walk up in the paddock areas and have a conversation, get some autographs with the riders. So it's very important, and it definitely gives the kids a real boost and motivates them to sort of chase their dreams. So it's pretty cool that they have that there, and they're sort of elevating it for privateers as well. And there's some pretty cool initiatives in general for privateers with the prize money and the photo collections they're going to have available to you. So those initiatives, chatting to Mick Sinclair recently, who's doing a great job as a key driving force behind it. There's definitely so many positives going in the right direction for Aussie Supercross. And just your thoughts on that. And another one, how many rounds should there be in Australian Supercross and motocross? Would you say an ideal number is 8 and 6, or what are you sort of looking at for your sort of choice number? Obviously, there's a lot of organising, a lot of things to do, tracks, but what's your take on that?
You pretty much banged it on there. I'm 8 and 6. I want to see more of the 2-day events, that we've seen this year. Like, that was awesome. They did 2. Obviously, the round in Newcastle there, I can't remember the track's name off the top of my head. And then obviously Coolum there, which you were a part of. The 2-day event, it's fantastic. It gives these privateers, it gives these guys, they're not driving all around Australia just to show up and do 15 minutes qualifying, 15 minutes practice, and then straight into motos. They get to ride the track, 2 practice qualifying, maybe a race on the Saturday afternoon, and then 2 races on the Sunday. Like, it's I'm a big fan of that. So I feel like, the magic number there's 8, with a few of these 2-day events. And then, minimum for Supercross, 5, 6 being ideal. And I want to see it back in Queensland. And it's not the fact of, we live here or that. It's we've only got to go back and look in old times there, like Cusack Stadium in Brisbane for the Chad Reed Supercross. It's sold out. That's, we haven't seen that before. Brisbane Entertainment Centre, it sells out. These areas are really, really, flooded with motorsports fans, and especially that. And then, a lot of the riders moved up here. A lot of the training facilities are up here. Obviously, with Nathan Crawford, 00 Elite, Ford Dal Elite as well. All the guys are here to see it back up here in Queensland. I feel would be very, very important. And then, hey, let's go back to WA. Let's give them something. They've been robbed of it for a little while, so for their guys to see it, I think it'd be a great idea. But at the same time as well, like, I'm concerned with the direction of where the sport is. You've only got to see on social media. Look, today there's another team announced, obviously, that they were closing up due to funding. And I'll tell you right now, Serco Motorsports isn't racing in 24.
Yeah,
that's how many years is that? That's 20-something years, and to lose these teams is scary. It's really scary, and what it reflects to, Ed. Whether if it's the money, the riders, I don't know what it is, but it's scary. And motocross and supercross is everything to me and you. It's our whole life. But in the scheme of things, it's a niche. It's very little. So it's weird. I don't know which direction it's going to go, but what they did this year with obviously the MX, with the Penrite MX, is fantastic. Motorcycling Australia killed it. Obviously with the TV packages, with the races, with going to the venue, seeing these tracks, seeing it all come together, the signage, the whole kit and caboodle, and then obviously AME Group 3, very, very important rounds of Supercross, which they've said they're going to extend it. Like next year, it could go to 4, could go to 5. It's taken the steps in the right direction, but there's a few things that just concern me a little bit, really.
Yeah, it's definitely worrying some of obviously the financial, purse string holders, obviously not maybe seeing the value in racing like they used to, or they don't see the future as strong as it once was. Obviously, economically, the world's going through a bit of a rough place, and everyone's feeling that hurt in a lot of ways, a lot of different ways. So fingers crossed that, there's still going to be a really strong scene here and across the world. Obviously, it's probably a little bit more financially stable, but in Australia, you definitely want that strong scene for riders to have those factory rides to work towards, youngsters to have carrots to chase, like we've been saying, because the factory ride, there's really not that many of them. And for kids wanting to make a living out of motocross, it's so hard as it is. A lot of things have to fall your way. So much hard work needs to go into it. So to not have that reward, it just makes it so much harder, doesn't it?
I feel like, it's maybe when I was younger or maybe when we were younger, like you looked up to, obviously, you look up to Chad Reed, right? That's Pastrana, those guys. But, Dan Reardon, those guys, like Brendan Harrison, Ford Dale, like those guys were like superstars to us. Obviously, we see them, the big shiny trucks, all this sort of thing. And now I feel like those days are gone. And it's more so I feel like with social media, it's so much easier for these kids to be accessible with these superstars in America, to see them, to be able to do this. I just, the grassroots of it here, I feel like is kind of gone. I feel like people aren't the die-hard fans of Aaron Taney or not the die-hard fans of Aaron Cloud, like those guys. Luke Cloud. So I was going to say Aaron Cloud, his brother. He may have fans.
Yeah.
He may have fans. Great mechanic.
Yeah.
I feel like that's sort of changed, right? And it's how that looks, and it's like that's why I say, I mentioned before about the rider signings, at Supercross. That stuff is really important because if you're a guy, it's like a lot of the guys, 99% of them are really good, but if you give a kid the benefit of the doubt, you give him some time of day, take a photo, do this, it might not mean much to you, but holy shit, that's the whole world to that kid. And for these guys to have their own fans back here and to follow them and not just jump on Instagram and follow Ken Roxon to be accessible to everything that he's doing, I feel like that's really important.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting take there, mate. Obviously, another, sad bit of relatively recent news is Coolum shutting down. Obviously, that's just a massive track, really great history there, really great racing there, really brutal test. A lot of guys train there. So have you heard any words on how that's going to be replaced on the calendar? Is there obviously that end of season vibe being on the coast, nice weather, a lot of guys, it was more than just a race in so many ways, people's families to enjoy that round. But I guess looking at it as well as on top of that question, what do you think some of the measures that might need to be taken, to keep the sport strong and to maybe get a bit more interest? Would that be things like going down the route of more supercross? Because as you see in America, it's like, that's where it's at, isn't it? Supercross. A lot of guys look to America and supercross, guys in Britain, guys in France, guys everywhere. They look to supercross, even if they don't necessarily race it, they watch it. And it's just so good for fans too, as well. You can get more fans in, I guess, in a lot of ways, because it's, you got the facilities there. It's undercover. There's no mud. The toilets are better. It's just so much more fan friendly, I guess, for bringing wives, girlfriends, children. It's just a lot more user friendly and sort of, it's a complete package, isn't it? So do you think that's another avenue that needs to be looked at as well?
See, I think you're onto something there with the fact of, Supercross. It's a lot more easier to, publicize. It's at night time. It's glamorous. It's this. It's a lot easier to put on TV.
Make more of a
not,
show out of it. Personally, love motocross, that ruggedness. It's a bit more brutal. Love that savage, but it's not for, new fans. It's not really the place for it, is it?
No, that's right. And it's hard to set up a whole, to have the whole track under, TV, have cameras everywhere. It's a lot easier inside a stadium. And I feel like if we can get this more on top of TV, we can get more people seeing it, more eyes on the sport. It's bound to grow that way. Maybe some more sponsors, maybe some out of industry sponsors that can start putting money into this, funding this sort of thing. I feel like that would be, really, really important. As for Pro MX, there's a couple places. I think there's a track not too far away from Coolum. It's about an hour away. It's called Conondale. It's been there in the past. We've had races there before. I'm pretty sure the club is putting an expression of interest out to have it there. I hope so. And I feel like that'll be a fantastic, finish to the year. It's big enough. You could almost turn it into like a Bathurst event where people go and camp, and you turn it into like a weekend. It's big enough in this area. It's the rolling grass hills. It's really what motocross is natural motocross. It's not, man-made tracks that are, pushed up and stuff like this. It uses a lot of the elevation, a lot of the rolling hills, and it's a very, very cool facility. We've seen it there in the past. I'd love to see it there again. Obviously, QMP, it's going to be on the schedule. They've got 1 year left, and I'm very interested to go back to Echo Valley, to Toowoomba. There's a few different places, so it is disappointing to see, Coolum, the end of an era for those guys and that club. I hope, they can find something pretty soon, and we're speaking with them. I'm pretty sure they've got stuff in the works, so hopefully it goes well for them and we can see it, potentially. At some point we might go back to a Coolum track or a Suncoast Junior Motorcycle Club and a sand track, so to speak. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, mate, well said. Yeah, definitely like what you said, like leaning into that show aspect Supercross brings is certainly, can get some more eyes on it, to get some more numbers through the gate, being at night time, not being exposed to the elements. There's just a lot of things that ticks boxes. And I guess getting guys like Chad Reed back in the fold in Australia, like we've seen with the CR22 Cup that's been implemented. I believe Chad, talking to Mick, he was like, Chad's not really into the SX3 because he thinks those guys should be racing professionally already. So the 85cc was a great thing for him to get those younger kids, I guess, like he had in many ways, into that competition, exposed to racing against it. And you see the popularity of it. So many entry list guys from America wanting to come. So that's a pretty cool little thing. And it's not just him putting his name to it. He's actively involved in it. He was doing some track walks with the kids, showing them what to do.
Very heavily involved. He was very heavily involved with that. Every time those kids were out on the track, he's out there with them, showing them, giving them, these little tips here and there. You could see it ticking over in his face. Like the qualifiers, there was a part outside the room. We all sat together. Chad was there as well. And you could see it ticking over. I was watching him pretty closely and seeing his thoughts with it. And for him to, be a part of it as well, and not so much just cash in with it. He was heavily involved with it and Supercross and his ideas. And what better way, the hero, the Australian hero for it, really, to be able to come home and guide this as well. And, look at Newcastle when obviously his son Tate races in that 85 Cup. Wow. That just makes me feel old, Edward, but it's
and then Townley's young bloke will be in Newcastle as well.
Yeah, it makes us feel old, right? It's but for him to be a part of it and to see how heavily involved he was really refreshing.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing to have in the pocket, and definitely something to work on and build towards, because those kids, you're not going to get anything better than that when you're growing up. Obviously, it's pretty sketchy, some moments they have, and they have a lot of intimidation about those tracks, and having someone like Reed just to allay their fears and say, this is how I would approach this section, or this is how you should do it. And, just trying to, impart knowledge onto them that really only he has, because he's lived it, he's experienced it, he's done it all. So they should really just soak that up. And I bet if you asked pretty much all the Aussie riders out there, if they had that, Chad Reed teaching them when they were young fellas, it would have been pretty invaluable. They would have snapped your hand off for it, wouldn't they?
Oh, that's right. You could, Dad could be out there saying the exact same thing, but no, we're not listening to Dad. We'll listen to
Doesn't
Chad.
resonate.
Nope. So for Chad to be able to do that and be a part of it, and just like I said, to see how involved he was with it, was fantastic. And I'm excited to see obviously Tate race Supercross and him be a part of that. And I feel like Chad was somewhat surprised. I think he goes, oh, okay, we got some work to do. Like the talent we have, obviously we have in this 85 class, of these guys that have gone out and learnt the craft, gone out and learnt Supercross and been a part of it. It has been a massive tick, that 85 Cup. I'm really happy to see it back. Well, to see it and see it grow. I really am.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Bring through those stars of tomorrow. And just a couple more questions before we go, mate. What are sort of your plans for the rest of the year? Obviously, you'll be covering World Supercross, the rest of Aussie Supercross, and really gearing up to A1. And did you say you were going to A1? I wasn't sure it was Alex and the family or you're part of that, mate. But just how excited are you for A1? Because you just look at the names. It's absolutely stacked. It's going to be an absolutely sort of gargantuan effort for some of these guys just to make it when you got Sexton, Tomac, Webb, Craig, Mookie, Wilson, Barsha, Roxon, Anderson, Plessinger, AC, Hill, Nichols, Benny, Bloss, Starling, Harlan. It's crazy. You can see why Marchbank's opted for the 250, can't you?
Yeah, and like both the Lawrence brothers on 450.
Lawrence brothers, yeah.
Like, we say every year, this is going to be the most stacked year ever. But there is every point saying 24. It's going to be the most stacked thing you've ever seen. And it's like I had this discussion with Trent obviously the other day, Moto Limited. Like you can't describe what Anaheim 1 is. You can't describe what that vibe coming into it. Like I say to anyone, okay, you want to know what the hype is and what the vibe is and the feeling and the excitement. I said 5:30 in the afternoon when all the qualifying's done and it's getting ready for the night show. It's getting dark. It's getting cold. I said, you go stand under the big A. Go stand there and just observe, watch, and you will see what we're talking about. So yeah, for sure, I'll be definitely part of that. I don't know how many I'm going to go to. Obviously, with Circo as well, we're doing some stuff over there. Obviously, with 7MX, doing some competitions here as well. So I might stick over there for that and be a part of that. But the rest of the year for me as well, Australian Supercross, be a part of that. I'll attend the Melbourne Supercross as well for World Supercross, and then try and I'm not going to say have some time off, but relax and reload. Got some pretty cool plans for what we're doing for next year, both with MotoOnline as well for the podcast side of things and some other ideas. And you never know, just might actually take some time off and not think about dirt bikes or something like that for a little while. But it's the excitement's already started, and like we've seen obviously the news October 1st. We start seeing the announcements. We start seeing this, and that starts to build the hype. It's when we start seeing the videos from the tracks. It's when we start seeing test track rumors, yada yada yada. I'm all for that. I feed off that stuff, and it comes into Christmas, and Christmas time you're only thinking about A1. Like Christmas Day for me is the first weekend of January in Anaheim, California. That's Christmas Day. So yeah, I'll be a part of that, and get ready to do it all again. I feel like we blink and we go through a month. So it's kind of scary. I'm scared to see how quick this is going to come. I really am.
Yeah, you feel like Nations was going to take forever to come around, and now it's been and gone, mate. And I guess looking back, it's been a massive year for guys like us, guys like the fans, covering it and watching it, enjoy it. So much racing. It's like it really is a full-time job for the fans to keep up with it, let alone us, mate. Almost have to sort of go past the normal working hours to keep abreast of everything. But what are some of the highlights, I guess, looking back? Hard to go past Jet Lawrence undefeated, what the Lawrence brothers are doing, Sexton, Tomac, Webb, the injuries. That was definitely a theme of this year. So many injuries going on. It was a brutal year for that with the Hurlings and Renault and these kind of guys in MXGP too. It's so much to look forward to, but also a lot to look back on that sort of deserves to be mentioned too, doesn't it?
I feel like, talking point from this year is obviously the perfect season for Jet Lawrence. That was incredible. I feel like, Colorado Supercross, where we had this thing, it was finished, it was done. And to see Eli go out with that is just, dude, I'm still not okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still not okay with that. And it's awesome to see him back on a bike, riding, getting ready. Like, to see him back in the Supercross, like, that was a major point as well.
He's going to be so motivated, isn't he?
Oh, it's going to be, he's my winner. Like, he's my winner. Simple as that. And then, to see the
Sexton on a KTM, how exciting is that going to be to watch that unfold?
Exactly. It's the new bikes. And a lot of these guys were moving around. We're getting another manufacturer. We're getting two manufacturers, Triumph and obviously Beta Motorcycles there with Benny Bloss and Nichols. And, when I think back to this year as well, I go, look back at Anaheim 1 in the futures, and Deegan really didn't do anything. He didn't shock the world, and he's our 250 Super Motocross World Champion. Just think about that. And to see that happen within a year and all these other talking points, I feel like a lot of injuries this year as well, which sucked. But we just have the year for it, unfortunately. The Lawrence going out there and, both boys winning championships. I never really thought, Ed, that I would see a perfect season. I didn't think in this day and age we'd see it. And to go out there and see that was crazy. And then SMX as well, the start of something new, the start of obviously Feld Entertainment and MX Sports. Like to see those guys going together as well. Like it's blame World Supercross, blame what you want, but to see those guys getting it together and being a part of this, and a season that went all year, this was literally a memorable year. It's a historic year. It's the start of something. Who knows where it goes, but it's being able to work in this industry, being able to be a fan of it, being able to attend these races. It's a dream, really. It is. It's like I say to Alex all the time. It's like I'm just a fan. That's all I am, and I just get to be a part of it.
Yeah, and then it's just so cool working in it and doing it for a living. And we both have multiple jobs and we make it work, mate, because the passion's there. So that's kind of a good bit of advice for anyone, I guess, wanting to get into it. You really got to love it, love what you're doing, be passionate about it, and put the hours in, because there's a lot of hours to it, isn't there, mate? Like, you see with Alex and I see with the boss and everyone, like a lot of guys in the industry put in the hard yards to make it happen. It's not easy. And I just wanted, obviously, massive credit to Adamo and Prado getting their titles in MXGP and MX2.
Of course, yeah.
Such impressive seasons. And one thing, I guess, we look at A1, the 450 class. Those 250 classes are going to be absolutely wild. You couldn't pick a winner. There'll be pretty much 10 guys every weekend that can win. So much parity, especially now Hunter's vacated and gone up to the 450s. How does that play out? Same as MXGP, looking at Yago going up to the 450. He showed what he could do at Redbud, absolute weapon on a bike. He'll look for some full recovery. Obviously didn't go how he liked at Erne, but he's a supreme talent. He should just slot straight into the top 5. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But yeah, those 250s in Supercross, mate, who have you got for that? Kitchen, all these guys moving teams, Voland. I'm especially keen to see Shimoda on that Honda though, mate. And Hymas back healthy.
Shimoda's going to be fantastic. I really think he will be. I think the dark horse here that a lot of people are probably going to underestimate is Voland on that Pro Circuit Kawasaki. Obviously, Ryan Hughes, his mechanic, I'm friends with him, talk with him quite a fair bit. He is going to be unreal. He's going to be fantastic. Hayden Deegan as well. Like, my picks, I'll say it right here. I'm a Hayden Deegan champion, and I'm an Austin Faulkner. Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki. I feel like he's going to get it done. He really is. I hope so, man. I hope so.
Yeah, I'm pretty big on Levi Kitchen as well, seeing how he'll go with that program. Probably will feel a little bit more comfortable, like he was
Absolutely.
saying. That'll be pretty fascinating to see. And even Vial year 2, maybe a step too far, because it is so hard, that Supercross, isn't it?
Like, okay, so the 250 class at SMX at Los Angeles there, Jordan Smith.
Yeah.
What was that? That was pre-27 Jordan Smith.
Yeah.
If he shows up there next year, he could win it. Like, we can, I'm already thinking about the preview shows and everything we're going to do for it. It's like
Giles Robertson, like, where do you go with that? It's just like, anything.
Oh, you really can. And I can't wait to have the whole East versus West. Who's best? East is West, best is West. Like, I can't wait to have those conversations again. I really can't. And then the structure there as well. Obviously, starting off there in Anaheim, I'm really excited for it to be in San Francisco. Oakland just was not it. Oakland was scary. To have it in a big stadium like that with NFL, it's going to be incredible. And then obviously Snapdragon Stadium there in San Diego. We went there for the first time this year. New look stadium, bit different. I liked it. And then obviously heading east as well, a few different of these different rounds, a couple different cities. It's a bit of a mixture. I'm all for it. I really am.
Oh, it's going to be so good, mate. So much to talk about between now and then, and we definitely look forward to getting you back on, mate. I guess just before we let you go, anyone you want to thank, give a shout out. Where can people follow your stuff, read your work, listen to your podcast? Just give you a quick chance to do that.
Yeah, of course. MotoOnline.com, motoonline.com.au for the latest for everything we've got going on there as well. Obviously, race day stuff is a heap of stuff there. And then MotoOnline, just search that on the Spotify or Android or Apple Podcasts, whatever you got there. A lot of cool things happening there. And we'll see me at the races. Say hello. I'm always keen for it.
Yeah, mate, all the best with everything. It's definitely, another exciting month coming up in the moto world, even though it's not the absolute elite racing. There's going to be so much to go with, mate. But yeah, for everyone that got through 2 Aussies talking moto, mate, they've done well. So the accents might be a bit brutal, sound a bit rough, but they've done it, mate. So cheers to all the fans and everyone for sticking in. And before we let you go, mate, we'll thank the sponsors in Fly Racing, Monster Energy, Fox, Parts Europe, Scott, Bell Helmets, Acherbys, AOC Performance, Kawasaki UK, KTM UK, O'Neill, and of course Even Strokes for all their incredible support, as without them none of this would be possible. All right, thanks again for joining us, mate. Been another cracking chat, and look forward to catching up soon.
Absolutely, mate. Appreciate the time, and yeah, look forward to seeing you in Newcastle.
No worries, mate. Have a good one.